How's it going, everybody? My name is LuckyBunz, and in today's video we're going to be going over the best tips and tricks to help you prepare for the Phantom Ruins event in Pokémon GO. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so first of all, this event is going to be taking place from June 14th to June 18th, 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. local time. You're going to get the following bonuses: 2x catch experience. The MP collection limit is going to be raised from 800 to 1600 per day. We're also going to get 8x MP from power spots going from 120 to 820. And you're going to get a boosted shiny rate on the following Pokemon: Gothita and Phantom from the Wild, Field Research, and Incense spawns. Now additionally, on top of that, there's also going to be a paid timed research available for $2. This will get you more encounters with Gothita and Phantom. You're also going to get 5 Incense and the special bonus of 2x Catch Stardust during the event. Now the main appeal of this ticket is going to be that 2x Catch Stardust bonus, but the incense that you're going to be getting as well will equal out to around $2, so you're also going to get your value in terms of premium items. I also think that the shiny boosted Pokemon from this event are more desirable than the previous two events that we've had, so that might be an incentive as well. Now we're also going to get the debut of GMAX Inteleon over the weekend on June 14th and June 15th from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. local time. GMAX Inteleon is going to be the best water type attacker in max battles moving forward, even better than GMAX Urshifu, which isn't currently in game, but that is the other speculated really good water type option. Now we're going to cover the best counters for GMAX Inteleon later in the video, so stay tuned for that, or you can skip ahead using the timestamps down below. Now before we get into the best counters for GMAX Inteleon, I do want to go over the featured Pokemon. So from the wild encounters, we're going to get access to Rhyhorn, Duskull, Skorupi, Drillbur, Arcan, Gothita, Golett, and Phantom. And then from the rare encounters, we're going to get access to Sableye and Chimecho, both award boosted Stardust. Sableye is going to be 750 and Chimecho is going to be 1000. Now from the special incense spawns, we're going to get access to Sableye, Chimecho, Gothita, Rufflet, Phantom, and Greavyard. And then finally from field research, we're going to get access to Gothita, Rufflet, Phantom, and Greavyard. Next up from legendary raids, we're going to have access to Kyogre from June 14th to June 23rd, so basically the entire event and even then some. Now Kyogre is not going to be in its primal form during this rotation, but we'll talk more about that later. Now there's also going to be a raid hour for Kyogre on June 18th, which is going to be the last day of this event, and that's going to be taking place on Wednesday from 6 to 7 p.m. local time. In the Mega Raid rotation, we're going to have access to Mega Manectric available during the same time period as Kyogre, and then finally in Max Battles, we're going to have access to Dynamax Machop until the 15th, and then we're going to switch over to Dynamax Hatena from the 16th to the 22nd. Now, I have noticed that we have been getting different Dynamax Pokemon available in Max Battles, but these were the only ones specifically mentioned on the official infographic from Pokemon GO. Now, like always, guys, keep in mind that not everything I just mentioned is going to be worth paying attention to, but we'll cover the best Pokemon you actually want to hunt later on in the video. Next up, though, let's go over the Spotlight Hour that's going to be taking place on June 17th, which is going to feature the Pokemon Solosis with the special bonus 2x Transfer Candy. This Pokemon isn't really meta relevant for anything, but that special bonus is going to be really important. So right now, you definitely want to be going through your Pokemon storage and kind of cleaning it up, and then transferring anything during this event so you can really maximize the candy gains. If you are struggling to transfer Pokemon, then I strongly recommend checking out my Ultimate Pokemon Storage Management Guide video. I'm going to leave that linked in the top right corner as well as in the description down below. Strongly recommend watching that. Seriously, it is going to change the game completely for you before GoFest. Now with that being said, let's dive into the best counters you guys can use against GMAX Inteleon, which is once again going to be taking place over the weekend on June 14th and June 15th. Now ideally for your max battle team, you want to go with a combination of 2 tanks and 1 attacker. Now you can definitely use 2 attackers and 1 tank if one of those attackers also functions as a tank, and I'm going to cover which of those Pokemon actually fit that criteria. So as far as the best attackers go, GMAX Venusaur with Vine Whip and GMAX Rillaboom with Razor Leaf are going to be the best options to go for as pure attackers. Now GMAX Venusaur can also be used as a tank as well, with Vine Whip being a 0.5 second fast move, so that's definitely a great option that covers both. Now with that being said though, GMAX Rillaboom with Razor Leaf isn't optimal because Razor Leaf is not going to be a 0.5 second fast move, therefore it's not going to be something you want to be using during the normal phase for max battles. You only want to use this during the max phase. Now I do also want to mention, if you don't have either GMAX Venusaur or GMAX Rillaboom, but for some reason you have their regular counterparts in Dynamax form, those are also going to be good attackers to use just because they're going to do super effective damage against Inteleon. So if you don't have anything else I'm about to mention, those will be good safe options. Now, the next GMAX Pokemon I want to talk about is going to be GMAX Toxtricity with Spark. Following that, for our Dynamax options, we have Raikou with Thundershock, and then we also have Zapdos with Charge Beam or Thundershock. Now, Charge Beam isn't going to be an optimal fast move, but if you're just using this as an attacker, that's okay. However, if you're going to be using this as like a tank slash attacker, Thunder Shock is recommended because that's going to be a 0.5 second fast move, but the downside here is that Thunder Shock does require an elite fast TM, because this was a raid exclusive moveset a long time ago. So overall, I would definitely say that GMAX Venusaur is probably the best option overall. Not only can it be used as an attacker, but it could also be used as a tank as well. Now additionally though, we do actually have two tanks I want to go over that are also going to be pretty good to use against GMAX Inteleon if you do have them. The first one I would hope that most of you guys have by now, just because I've been talking about it constantly in like every Dynamax related video. That's going to be Blissey with Pound. This is by far the best tank in practically every Dynamax and Gigantamax scenario, so yeah, without a doubt, Blissey's going to be the GOAT. Now, on top of that, you could also go with GMAX Lapras with Psywave, just because this is going to resist most of Inteleon's moves. Once again, GMAX Lapras is going to be used as a tank only. You don't want to use this as an attacker against GMAX Inteleon. As soon as you go into that Dynamax phase, you want to switch into your best attacker. Now, for all of your counters, I would recommend having them powered up to at least around level 30. That's going to be around 5,000 Stardust to power up. You can definitely take them further, but at level 30, I would prioritize focusing on the max moves instead, before you start taking them to level 40 or level 50 respectively. When it comes down to my own counters, most of them are actually still sitting at level 30, but their max moves have been upgraded. And then I think the only Pokemon that I've currently taken to level 40 is Metagross, and then I just recently powered up my Blissey to level 50. Just because Blissey is that good, it is useful in practically every Dynamax scenario, so without a doubt, once you get the ideal IV spread on Blissey, take that thing to 50 if you have the resources. Next up, let's talk about the recommended party size, and I definitely got some various comments on, what's actually recommended, so I'm going to go into this as best detail as I can, just because I feel like it might have been unclear in my last video what my recommendation really is when it comes down to this, alright? So, first of all, if you're going to be doing these in person, you're going to get your MP back, and you're not going to lose out on anything if you end up failing. That's fantastic. That being said though, if you're going to be using remote raid passes to remote raid into these, you will still get your MP back if you end up failing, but you're not going to get your remote raid pass back. Total design flaw if you ask me. I feel like they should just give your remote raid pass back if you end up failing, but I don't know. For whatever reason, they can't just code it to do this. So for this reason, I'm going to recommend at least 20 plus trainers in your lobbies if you're going to be using remote raid passes, just due to the uncertainty of your teammates' Pokemon. While you can definitely take this down with under 10 trainers with proper counters, you have no idea how many unprepared trainers you're going to get lobbied together with when using an app like PokeGenie, for example. Now, I do also want to mention one very important etiquette. When deciding to jump, I would do it before the 30-second mark. This way it gives other players enough time to actually leave without being blindsided. Keep in mind that a lot of people are going to blindside you and jump last second in a lobby that they consider too small. So if you want to play things even safer, you could also aim for lobbies with at least 30 plus players to decrease the chance of this actually happening. You have no idea who's going to jump at the last second, but I guarantee in lobbies with 30 or more players, it's almost never going to happen. Now I understand that can be kind of stressful, and therefore I do encourage you guys, if possible, to go out and do these in person opposed to remote raiding them, but I also understand not everybody's going to have access to a local community near them, or they just prefer to use remote raid passes, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're going to be doing that, you do risk actually, losing that remote raid pass if you end up failing the GMAX. So with that being said, that pretty much covers my explanation when it comes down to this. I wanted to clarify this a little bit better this time around, just because I feel like it might have been a little bit too vague last time. So anyways, it's got to be up to you what you want to do, but that's my recommendation all around. Now with that being said, I do want to quickly go over some tips and tricks to help you guys make the most out of this GMAX event. So first of all, if you're going to be doing local raids, I strongly recommend checking out Campfire. If you're going to be doing remote raids, then I recommend using PokeGenie or possibly even a PokeRaid Reddit group, just because those might be a little bit more reliable. As of right now, there isn't like a strong way to actually get these done consistently. So again, just using the recommendations that I mentioned earlier when it comes down to lobby size, PokeGenie is perfectly fine. As long as you see at least 30 plus trainers, there's a strong chance you guys are going to beat it. I'd be surprised if you actually couldn't get it done. Now for anybody out there who has more resources that are free to use, please let me know in the comment section down below. I'd love to include them in future videos. Now we all know that these GMAX Pokemon have been kind of hit or miss, like literally. Like the GMAX Cinderace this past weekend, I heard it was so bad when it came into the catch circle. I don't know what happened. I actually couldn't make GMAX Cinderace this weekend. I had other plans that I had to kind of focus on, so I missed it. But from what I saw on Reddit, the catch circle was just almost impossible to hit, kind of like GMAX Snorlax. So when it comes down to these max battles, these GMAX Pokemon especially, I feel like, having the Iceberg Adventure effect on White Kyurem may come in handy more often than not during certain releases, right? For GMAX Machamp, it wasn't required, but for GMAX Snorlax and for GMAX Cinderace, It kind of was. So for those of you who don't know, Ice Burn is going to increase your catch rate by 1.5 times, and it's going to slow down the target ring. Combined together with Golden Raspberries and Excellent Throws, and you'll have the best chance of actually catching these Pokemon. But when it comes down to certain Pokemon, landing those Excellent Throws is kind of impossible. That mainly has to do with the catch circles, and I'm assuming the next time we're going to see GMAX Cinderace, it's probably going to be fixed. But during launch, not exactly, right? So hopefully GMAX Inteleon isn't going to be one that is kind of problematic, but given that it's like a gigantic sniper Pokemon, I have a feeling that's probably not going to play out super well. So if you want to add some rare candy into your White Kyurem, if you guys do have them, that might be a good idea just to prep in advance for GMAX Inteleon, because we really don't know, right? Given the size of that Pokemon, given how it's actually set up, it could either be really bad, like it's too high up, and we can't actually reach with our Pokeballs, or they're going to do it properly, and it's going to be perfectly fine. No idea, just predictions at this point, so yeah, having White Kyurem might help out. Now, additionally, if you guys do have a solid group of trainers together and you're going to be doing at least 2 to 3 of these within like 30-minute time period, it would be a great idea to drop a start piece, because the base amount you're going to get from a GMAX rate is 25,000 Stardust. With the start piece, it's going to go all the way up to 37.5 thousand Stardust. And for the pay-to-win players, you can double this with 200 Pokecoins to make it 75,000 Stardust. I said pay-to-win, I meant spend-to-win. So yeah, it's totally up to you. Even if you're free to play, I still think it's going to be a good idea to drop a start piece. I have been farming so much Stardust doing these, and it's been fantastic. I think next to GBL, this is probably the best way to get Stardust in the game now. So with that being said, that pretty much covers all the relevant information for GMAX Inteleon. If you guys have anything additional you would like to add on, let me know in the comment section down below. But now let's take a look at the best Pokemon you want to focus on from this event. So first of all, we're going to start off with Rhyhorn, which evolves all the way up into Rhyperior. This is going to be a great Pokemon to focus on, both in the Raid/Gym meta for the Rock type and the Ground type meta, as well as for Rocket battles, and also for the Open Master League because it currently ranks in the top 25 right now. For most people out there, you're probably going to want to run this in raid battles as well as for the Open Master League, so ideally you would also want to have the Legacy Charge move Rock Wrecker. That being said though, if you're just going to be using this against Rocket Grunts, you don't actually need to have this moveset. So if you end up getting like a really good IV spread and you really want to use it against Rocket Grunts right now, you can do that and worry about the Elite TM later. But overall, when it comes down to this Pokemon, if you do end up getting like a really good IV spread, I would hold on to it for a future event potentially where we can actually evolve to get this moveset for free. We have had them in the past. Next up, let's take a look at Duskull, which evolves into Dusclops in its second stage form. This is going to be relevant in the top 10 for the Open Great League. And if you evolve it all the way up into its final stage form, Dusknoir, it's not only going to be relevant in the top 20 for the Open Great League, but it's also going to rank in number 6 for the Open Ultra League right now. With the recent GBL changes only taking place a few weeks ago in Pokemon GO, over the next at least 3 months, these Pokemon are probably going to be pretty relevant. I would be surprised if they actually got bumped out of the meta just because, like, they're ranked so well right now. Now, following that, we're going to have Skorupi, which evolves into Drapion, relevant in the top 100 for the Open Great League and the top 40 for the Open Ultra League. The Open Ultra League spread does require extra large candy if I'm not mistaken, so definitely make sure to have the right Mega Evolution active if you're going to be grinding for this. We'll talk about that later. Next up, we're going to have Drillbur, which evolves into Excadrill, going to be a great budget option for the ground type meta, probably one of the best ones just because it only costs 50 candy to evolve it, and if you end up catching some really high level Drillbur in the wild, you can just evolve them all the way up into Excadrill and boom, you have a really good ground type attacker now. It's not going to be like the best of the best, but it'll definitely hold up for quite some time. They're kind of glassy, so if you want to evolve like multiple, maybe even like 6 to 12, I think that might not be a bad idea. You can farm a lot of candy during this event, so it should be pretty easy to get this done. Now, if you also want to save your candy and extra large candy for the Dynamax version, that could also be really good as well. Once again, when it comes down to Excadrill for the Raid/Gym meta, I would mainly just catch and evolve your highest level ones. I wouldn't really spend resources powering them up. However, for the Dynamax version, you will have to use resources to at least power it up to around level 30, and then you're going to have to use a lot of candy to upgrade the max moves. But I can definitely say for sure that Excadrill is probably one of the most frequently used Pokemon I do use in max battles. It just really depends on the boss. Next up, we're going to have Gothita, which I mentioned earlier is going to be shiny boosted during this event at a 1 out of 128 shiny rate. We're also going to have Golett, which evolves into Golurk. This is going to be relevant to the top 80 for the Open Great League and the top 100 for the Open Ultra League. Kind of went down a little bit since the previous meta updates, but definitely still Pokemon worth focusing on. Following that, we're going to have Phantom, which is going to be shiny boosted during this event, a great Pokemon to actually have shiny boosted. This is one of the rarer shinies to get in Pokemon GO and probably just in general, so yeah, definitely recommend clicking on every single one of these. But not only that, Phantom is a great Pokemon because if you actually trade this, it's going to be a free evolution. Normally it costs 200 candy to evolve it into Trevenant, which isn't going to be required if you actually trade them. So that's going to be a great way to really just farm up some extra experience. Now, what's actually really awesome about this is because GoFest is upcoming, you probably don't want to do this, but at the same time, we also have a 2x Evolve Experience Spotlight Hour on the 24th, a few days before GoFest. So you can get a bunch of these during this event, and then you could trade them, and then you can evolve them, and then you can transfer them and clear up your Pokemon storage all before GoFest. So it actually works out perfectly. So I strongly recommend taking advantage of that, even if you guys already have a bunch of experience. Like, I mean, it's gonna be such an easy way to farm some. Like, it literally costs 0 candy to evolve, guys. And during a 2x Evolve Experience Spotlight Hour, just pop a Lucky Egg. I would say, like, within the 1 hour, 2 Lucky Eggs, at least 140 Trevenant ready to go, or sorry, Phantom ready to go. Now, of course, if you have less, 70 per 1 Lucky Egg, it's perfectly fine, but it's totally up to you. However much you want to grind during this event, it'll definitely pay off in the experience department. Now, additionally, on top of all of that, when it comes down to Phantom, but when it evolves into Trevenant, this Pokemon is also relevant to the top 100 for the Open Ultra League. So it has a shiny boost, it has a free trade evolution, and it's going to be meta relevant in the Open Ultra League. Fantastic Pokemon to focus on during this event. Next up, we're going to have Sableye, which is going to be Stardust boosted at 750 Stardust per catch. Great Pokemon worth catching, and also has an excellent shiny. Sableye is also going to be relevant to the top 50 for the Open Great League, and what's actually really interesting is thanks to the recent meta changes, not like super recent, but like just in like the past year, Sableye no longer needs to be a purified option for the Open Great League. You can just use a regular Sableye, so I mean, it does require a lot of extra large candy, so it's not going to be like a cheap investment. It's one of these super extra large Pokemon builds for the Open Great League. But still, I mean, it's a great one you can actually pay attention to now for the IV spread, not just for the candy farming. Hopefully that makes sense, just because in the past you would actually have to grind out Rocket Grunts to get an ideal IV spread with like low attack, high defense, high stamina, and then purify it. And that was a really difficult process. In like the past 4 to 5 years, I still haven't got one that was actually worthy of being powered up for that. So personally speaking, I'm pretty happy about this, and I definitely need to get my hands on one. Next up, we're gonna have Chimecho, which is gonna be Stardust boosted as well at 1000 Stardust per catch. It also had its catch rate significantly improved, so it's not nearly as difficult as it once was. Great Pokemon you should always be catching. It also has one of the rarest shinies in the game because Chimecho was almost never featured. It took one of my viewers telling me that to realize that Chimecho is just never featured in like any event, so yeah, great shiny to get as well. The next Pokemon is going to be Rufflet, which is going to be used as a budget raid attacker for the flying type meta when you evolve it all the way up into Braviary. This is going to be an incense only Pokemon though. The next Pokemon I want to talk about is going to be Kyogre, which I mentioned earlier isn't going to be available with its primal form during this rotation, which means you're not going to get energy for that primal when you actually do these raid battles. Kind of a big downside is also not going to have Origin Pulse during this event, or sorry, during this rotation, but you can always Elite TM for that moveset, so it's not exactly like a huge downside. If you end up getting like the Hundo, you can always Elite TM it later. But overall, this Pokemon is still worth raiding. Maybe some might consider raiding hard for this, maybe some people might not consider raiding hard for this just because not having the Primal Energy, not having access to the signature moveset, isn't exactly time to go hard for this Pokemon, but at the same time, it's still Kyogre. It's still the best of the best. You still want to get candy for the Primal, the Regular, the Shadow. There's a lot of playability here. This Pokemon is also great to use against Rocket Grunts with Waterfall, one of my favorite Pokemon actually. I have given the Elite TM movesets to both my Regular, which is also my Primal, and my Shadow, and they both have the double moves unlocked, so I use them all the time. I cannot oversell this enough. Kyogre is a great Pokemon worth farming, but again, because we don't have access to the Primal during this rotation and we don't have access to the Legacy moveset, may not be worth using a bunch of your premium passes. You might want to save those for Zacian and Zamazenta during GoFest in about 2 weeks. Next up, we're going to have Mega Manectric, which is going to be the #1 Mega Electric type option in the game, so definitely a Pokemon worth paying attention to, trying to get a good IV spread, trying to get some Mega Energy, and then you could also focus on getting this to Mega Level 3 to have as an Electric type Mega to use during certain events. Now during this event, we're also going to get access to Dynamax Hatena, which I mentioned earlier. This is going to be a great Pokemon to farm for candy, specifically for the future GMAX form. We don't know if it's going to be the best Fairy type option, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be. So definitely a Pokemon, if you weren't farming during, I think, the Serene Retreat event, you definitely want to take advantage of it in max battles just with your extra MP. Now additionally, on top of that, we're also going to have 2 special trades per day during this season, so don't forget to get some lucky trades done if you guys have lucky friends at these in-person events. Now finally, let's talk about the best Mega Evolution I have active during this event for candy farming bonuses. So there's a lot of Megas that you can actually use during this event. I'm going to cover the best ones and then we'll go over some alternative options as well. So by far the best option, I think, that covers the most amount of spawns is going to be Mega Gengar, which takes on the dual typing of Poison and Ghost. And this is going to cover Duskull, Sableye, Golett, Greaveyard, Phantom, and Skorupi. Now you can still cover all the ghost type options with Mega Bayonet and Mega Sableye, so both of those are going to be good options to go with as well. Now we do actually have some other Pokemon featured during this event, so another good option you guys can go with is going to be Primal Kyogre, which is going to cover Inteleon, Kyogre, Manectric, and Skorupi. So I think over the weekend, if you're going to be doing these GMAX Inteleon raids plus some Kyogre raids, having Primal Kyogre is going to be the best option to go with. If you want to cover some of the ground type spawns as well as some of the ghost type spawns, you can also go with Primal Groudon, which is going to cover Rhyhorn, Drillbur, Golett, and Phantom. And if you want a nice in between, you can also go with Mega Swampert, which is going to cover Inteleon, Kyogre, Rhyhorn, and Drillbur. And then finally, if you want to actually hit the other spawns of this event, we're going to have Mega Rayquaza, which is going to cover Gothita, Chimecho, Arcan, and Rufflet. So you definitely have a lot of good options here in terms of what you actually want to hunt. I think that Mega Gengar and Primal Kyogre are probably going to be my top 2 picks, but honestly, everything is going to be pretty good. With that being said, that pretty much covers everything you guys need to know to make the most out of this event. Best of luck out there, and if you guys do need help managing your Pokemon storage before Pokemon Go Fest, then check out this video next.